飯を食わせてくれ。
What's going on, everybody? My name is Ohara, and today we're once again gonna talk about the latest developments in One Piece. Okay, guys, I know there is some other heavy stuff going on in this chapter, but first of all, Kaido has just made another big step to becoming one of my favorite villains in the story. And secondly, we've gotten to a point where my originally only half-serious theory of Yamato joining the Straw Hats has now somehow become the most likely turnout within only 3 chapters after meeting her. While on the one hand I'm pretty damn excited that Oda's hinting at this now already, I'm also pretty worried that Oda is hinting at this now already. It's one of these times where it almost feels a bit too good to actually become true, if you know what I mean. But I still won't let my hopes be crushed. The more we get to see of Yamato, the more I like her character design. And I have a hard time understanding people who are saying that she's the same as Nami, because I feel neither visually nor personality-wise do they resemble each other too much. Well, we'll definitely get into the entire Yamato thing in detail in just a second. But for now, grab yourself a nice cup of coffee, or really whatever you enjoy drinking the most, lean back, and let's dive right into this chapter. Because there is obviously a lot that we have to unpack here. Okay, let's walk through this absolute bombshell of a chapter bit by bit. As a quick disclaimer, I've read the English translation, but I heavily based this review on the original Japanese version, just in case you're wondering about some weird phrasing I have here and there. Okay, we're starting off at the back door to Onigashima, where the Scabbards and Law have met up with Nekomamushi, Izo, and Marco. Even though Marco did leave again right away, I suspect for a second more dramatic entrance later on. While Law's plan was meant to ensure that they could invade the fortress by stealth and stay undiscovered, they're greeted at the gate by no one other than Kanjuro. While he apparently didn't actually know about this plan, he simply suspected it based on the knowledge about the alliance he had, and was convinced that they would show up here. Now, no matter how despicable Kanjuro might be as a person, I really love that he's not only done a complete turnaround in terms of power, but also in terms of wits. This guy evidently has a very sharp mind, and I think that makes him even more interesting, especially considering what happens later on in this chapter. Kanjuro is accompanied by a pretty interesting looking mix of samurai and beast pirates, including 2 huge headless warriors riding on enormous horses. Considering the respectable size of Kanjuro, and also keeping Oda's weird inconsistency with heights in mind, these 2 look absolutely frightening. As it turns out, these samurai are actually drawings made by Kanjuro himself to taunt the Scabbards and foreshadow their fate. And you gotta love Oda for this, because ironically enough, they actually some sneaky little foreshadowing by Oda for someone else losing their head later on in this chapter. While Kanjuro recognizes the stunned Izo and taunts him for coming all the way home just to lose a battle, he also shares the story of how Momo tried to escape. He even cut Kanjuro in the hand with his little knife, and I know this is just a small detail, but how cute is it that Kanjuro has put a plaster on the little wound? Kind of random, don't you think? But a funny little detail. So after Momo stabbed him, the furious Kanjuro beat him unconscious, even noting that he was surprised that he was still alive. Now, while he attributes it to Odin's blood running through Momo's veins, I still wonder if Kanjuro would truly be capable of killing Momo. I somehow am still not 100% convinced. And then we have another weird scene here. While Kanjuro tells the Scabbards about Momo's public execution taking place any second now, Inuarashi and Nekomamushi have a good time talking about Neko's admittedly pretty dope new gun hand a la Guts. Now, I don't know if I'm the only one, but this strikes me as a bit weird and misplaced here. Because Kanjuro is basically telling them that their master will be executed any moment now, and the 2 Minks aren't even listening properly. And it really makes me wonder what Oda was thinking when drawing this moment, because it seems almost too deliberately placed here to be by accident. Also, on a side note, Inuarashi apparently figured he might just do the same thing as Nekomamushi as well, and has attached a sword to his missing foot, Shiki style, and he's now fighting with Nitoryu, so 2-sword style, which I think is pretty original considering one of the swords is his leg. Meanwhile, Kiku has the, in my mind at least, appropriate reaction to this all and prepares for battle. Once again, I can't overstate how much I love her armor here. While Kanjuro proclaims that the history of the Kozuki will come to an end here, Kiku tells him that a wound dealt by her sword won't simply vanish from this world. Just like winter snow that remains in spring, it will keep haunting him forever. I gotta be honest, this phrase had an especially poetic touch to it in Japanese, and I feel it's small details like this, where maybe some characterization is simply lost at times in translation for some of these characters. And it's especially poetic since Kiku's epithet is the lingering snow, which has just such a Japanese and samurai-like vibe to it. I really love details like these, even if it's just in the language. It simply adds a lot of texture to these characters in my opinion. And I would actually not be surprised if this were to be an actual power of Kiku's. Maybe she also actually carries a cursed blade. Now the next moment Kiku actually starts charging at Kanjuro. And guys, she looks fast. Her and Kanjuro clash and the battle at the back door begins. And I honestly can't wait to see this scene animated. I really hope they put some time and money into this, even if it's just the moment of Kiku charging. Now we finally get back to the conversation between Yamato and Luffy in the attic. Now, just as a very short disclaimer here, just to get it out of the way, yes, I'm gonna be referring to Yamato as she, but also to Kiku as she. Because I personally think that Kiku really wants to be a woman, while Yamato simply wants to imitate Odin and carry on his will. Okay, so let's move on, because this conversation is better than anything I could have imagined. Yamato tells Luffy that she originally wanted to leave Wano together with Ace and travel on his ship. However, as it seems, the shackles she's wearing are actually not a bold fashion choice after all, but work similarly to those that the Celestial Dragons use on their slaves. Once Yamato would leave the island, they would explode and kill her. At least that's what Kaido told her. In fact, she's pretty sure that Kaido wouldn't actually kill his own kid. However, considering who he is as a person, on the off chance that he is actually told the truth, she didn't want to risk her life for it. This is actually some wonderful characterization for Yamato in just a few blocks of dialogue here. She obviously is brave and wants to defy her father, who beat her up a lot as a child for being disobedient, but at the same time she didn't have the chance to gather any real-life experience and thus seems to be afraid to gamble her life for freedom. Now, don't get me wrong, I personally wouldn't want to take that risk either. I just think it's a very important human element for her character. And most importantly, she tells Luffy that she was waiting for him to come and travel with him on his ship, just as Odin did back then. Ooh, hell yeah. This is what I meant at the beginning of the video. It's almost too good to be true. However, I absolutely love that Yamato's wish and will to join the Straw Hats has now pretty much been made an actual part of the story. And just the possibility of it happening at the end of this arc gets me very excited. I just hope Oda doesn't break my heart with this plotline here. I think Yamato would actually make an absolutely fantastic addition to the crew. Since Luffy is now able to open shackles like these with his newfound Haki powers, just as Rayleigh did back on Sabaody, he offers Yamato to take off her chains. This obviously shocks the princess, since she's been wearing them for the past 20 years, which I honestly think is insane. This sounds so incredibly uncomfortable if you think about it. Now, while Yamato promises to fight with Luffy and the others against her father, before Luffy can take the chains off, they hear Kaido's speech being broadcasted in the hall below them. And in this scene, there is just so incredibly much going on. Kaido tells his men about the newly developed power of the Marines, based on which they felt confident enough to abolish the warlord system. And I'm already super excited to find out what Vegapunk has developed there. Kaido, however, already has an answer to this. He has teamed up with Big Mom in order to find the One Piece and get his hands on the ancient weapons to finally start the world war he's been dreaming of. Whew, this is of course a major announcement, and it makes me wonder whether Caribou might not actually be playing another crucial role in this arc after all. If Kaido now truly is after the ancient weapons, he might want to disclose the information about Shirahoshi after all. And then, the next moment, Big Mom bursts into the arena. And at her feet, she throws the unconscious Carrot and Nami, with Zeus limply hanging in her hand. It looks like these two were not able to escape the Yonko after all. However, at least it seems like Zeus did not betray them in the end, which I think might be a good sign. However, both of them are now in serious trouble. However, this is still far from being the most shocking part of this, because Kaido now introduces the new Onigashima initiative he's been planning all along. He will transfer Onigashima to the Flower Capital, whatever that's supposed to mean, and he will turn Wano into a lawless empire of pirates. The new shogun of this new empire, meanwhile, should be Yamato. This is of course a bummer, because the Flower Capital is actually, Orochi's territory, as the shogun himself notes. And without a single second of hesitation, Kaido cuts his head off. Just like that. Wow, I did not see that coming at all. Holy moly. This is what I call a true plot twist. And as I mentioned earlier, the headless samurai that Kanjuro drew are just the more ironic now. And what I enjoy even more here is what will happen to Kanjuro now that his master is dead. Will he join Kaido, fight him, or will he just try to get on the good side of the scabbards again? As for all the samurai and Orochi's men, Kaido gives them a time limit of 5 seconds to choose whether they will join him as pirates or whether they will fight him and die. Now this right here is some real Emperor stuff. The more screen time Kaido gets, the more intrigued I am by him as an antagonist. And for all these times where we wondered how Kaido has kept up with Orochi over all these years, it turns out that he never planned to keep the alliance alive in the first place. He simply used Orochi to produce weapons and build his forces. And remember the chapter where there was a lot of talk about how alliances always fail? Well, who would have thought that this would be the one to fail first? Now the big question of course is Orochi truly dead? After all, he has that mythical zone fruit, and there are so many people out there holding a grudge against him. All the scabbards, Hiyori, Momo, none of them will now have the chance to take their revenge. What a plot twist. Now, is there any chance that Orochi has somehow survived this? Of course, he has an 8-headed devil fruit after all, but do I think that it's likely? To be honest, not really. Unless Orochi has hidden some of his true power all along, even from Kaido, I don't see a way here where being beheaded by an emperor that should be fully aware of these powers could be survived, especially in his human form. So for now at least, I guess, we have to take it that Orochi is dead, until he pops up somewhere again someday. And to be honest, while I think it would be satisfying to see all of the Kozuki get their revenge against him, this scene was somehow pretty cathartic in a way as well. Luckily enough for Momo, now that Orochi's out of the picture, I think Kaido's first priority won't be executing him right away. That was Orochi's thing after all. So I guess everyone hurrying towards the plaza now have gained some valuable time. This also includes Luffy and Yamato now, who've broken through the floor of the attic and are now making their way towards Momo. Immediately, of course, they get spotted, and someone calls for the Flying Six to chase them. The dynamic between the two here is already gold, and I hope that we'll really get to see a bond form between Luffy and Yamato over the course of the battle. And also, Yamato shouting, as if shitty old man, in reaction to her father naming her the new shogun, is pretty damn funny. Ultimately, the question whether she can become a Straw Hat will, in my opinion, depend on how much she knows about Love Tale from Oden's journal. If he didn't reveal too much in them, I think our chances are pretty good. Now, interestingly enough, within Kaido's speech there are 2 commentless panels of Kiku, her sword dripping with blood and tears streaming out of her eyes. Without even knowing what's going on here, this scene looks incredibly powerful. And you really have to wonder, what happened here? Did she actually kill Kanjuro off screen? Did someone else lose their life in that skirmish? What the hell happened here? This chapter was just an absolute blast to read, and I honestly am so excited about each chapter recently, and they just keep getting better and better. Also, since there was a lot of talk about the ancient weapons and the One Piece in this chapter, I recently introduced a theory about the possible history of the ancient kingdom that Oda might have foreshadowed throughout the story, so you can check that out here. Peace, guys.